And y'all don't know what I went through.
Do you have a card in your hands right now?
Nike Talk was that place that spiraled what you enjoy now.
Anyone who brought a Kobe shoe in, I would clean it for free.
Man, Melo was better than a lot of people in the league.
I saw my favorite jerseys, that one, the Barkley.
Kobe fours.
Oh, yeah.
Episode 59. This is the Dandon and RG
Y'all don't know
podcast. This is Dandon. RG couldn't make it tonight, but you have a card in your hands. What's up to everybody? So
Nike
tonight
Talk
we got a
was that
returning
place
guest.
that
We got the
spiraled
homie Mike Callow of
what you enjoy now.
Anyone who
ESPN630
brought
AM. How you
a
doing
Kobe
tonight,
shoe
Mike?
in, I would clean it for free.
Yeah, I'm good, man.
Man,
Melo was better than a lot of
Pretty
people
good,
in the
man.
league.
You know, I
saw
wanted
the-
to say thank
my
you. You know,
favorite
me
jerseys,
and my
that
son, we visited
Barkley.
Maryland back
Kobe
in June.
fours.
Got the opportunity to check out, the ESPN studios. I know it was it was, I think, during that time, and we guys going through like full renovations at that time, and he had to gave me the heads up, like it's kind of messy, and but hey, it was great to finally meet you and Bram in person, and it got to chop it up a little bit, and my son was really geeked out, and he kind of put like a face with the voice kind of thing, but he's only 8, but he probably remember through like pictures, but I really want to say thank you for taking the time for like meeting him up just for a little bit during the summer.
Of course, man. Anytime. And, you're a friend of the show. And, anyone that wants to do that, I always just say, be nice about it. Take a few minutes and we can usually, make it happen if the schedules work out.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I had to gift you guys, a little something, so I'll share with you. Yeah. We'll share that later on. But I did gift, I hope Bram wears it come basketball season. I did gift, Bram a couple of Washington Wizard playoff shirts that they gave out at the arena, and I hope maybe one day he'll wear them after football, but yeah, more to come.
For sure.
Mike is he's a radio producer for ESPN with the Bram Weinstein show. And he's also you're also a producer too for the Caps radio network, right?
Yep. Every Caps game you hear on the radio, I produce as well. So
Yep.
double dipping.
Hey, it's all right. Hey, man, we appreciate all you do. So I definitely check you guys on the Odyssey app. So I just have a couple questions for you, Mike. So I know you're diehard DMV sports fanatic. So I know. So first question for you. I know you attended week 1 at FedEx Field for the Commanders Cardinals game. So you, as from a fan's perspective, and you've noticed everything what transpired during the management change and ownership change. How was that fan experience like for you, and what have you seen differently from yesteryears?
So I'll get this out of the way. Post-pandemic, FedEx actually has been a little bit better overall, I would say. And I mean, part of that went hand in hand with, let's be honest, not a lot of fans were attending. So traffic was a little bit better, getting in and out was a little bit better. But part of me was definitely worried on Sunday of like, dang, that Beyonce concert a month ago was crazy, where like security closed a gate and people were like passing out. It was so hot. Part of me was a little worried, like, ooh, maybe they're not used to having this many fans and this many people at FedEx Field. But I'll be honest, man, from the beginning of the day, throughout, it was really smooth. Getting in and out of the stadium was perfect. The concession stands, while there were lines because it was crowded, were moving. And I mean, if you're a season ticket holder discount, you get half off, food and drink. So like the benefits for me, have been there. The vibe was great too. I will say this. I think everyone thought the score was going to be a little bit more of a high scoring game and the Commanders to have, a little bit better of a day offensively. And so I felt like the party vibe was there, but like everybody was kind of waiting for that like dagger of a moment, but it never really quite occurred. But I'll say this too. My season tickets are in the 400 level. I sit in row 1. So I tend to not really pay attention, to the section, but, it was noticeably full. Like there was all seats were filled and it was all Commanders fans. And I can't say that for the last couple of years that I've had season tickets that it's been that way. And so just seeing it be a pro Commanders crowd was just like, I don't know, it brought me back. Cause like my parents had season tickets until 2010. And so I grew up going to games at FedEx. I was too young really to go to RFK, but I always just remember it was always at least Redskins fans. It was always at least the same people around you. The vibe. Despite Dan owning the team, it wasn't as bad as it was a couple years ago. When the pandemic happened and the name change and all that stuff. But it finally felt like it was our home stadium again. And FedEx Field's FedEx Field, and I think everyone's just kind of come to terms with, we know a new one's coming. This is what it is. But the vibes were really, really good. And honestly, the Bills game, I can't wait to see how that is. I know there's going to be a lot of Bills fans, but let's just see if the momentum keeps going, especially if they win through the season. So I could not recommend enough. Also, one more thing I got to mention, because if you've been to FedEx Field, the traffic getting out is always terrible, right? I think it's the reason why some people don't go to games. Dude, they closed the lane on 495 to let people out faster. Traffic was clear in under an hour. I couldn't believe how much faster it was. So they're already improving things that Dan never improved. And honestly, that's the best thing I could ask for game one of the new era, pretty much.
So traffic flow was number one, in the back of people's mind, because, as much as people want to wait for the final seconds, they want to get that head start. But to your surprise, you got home in a reasonable amount of time, and you didn't have to wait with everybody, just finishing their last brewski, tailgating before heading their way home. So let me ask you, Callow, I know they showed a lot of Commander legends. Which former player or legend got the biggest pop?
So this is actually one of my gripes from the game on Sunday. They didn't show enough of these guys. They showed a few of them. They showed Riggo when he opened up the jacket and it had the Redskins logo. That was probably the biggest pop of the day, mainly because he went for the cheap pop and showed the old logo, and people went crazy for that. So I definitely give it to Riggo. But I was really hoping they would show someone every break. Show me Josh Harris. Show me Magic. Show me Mark Ein. Show me, Rails. Show me everybody. Show me Champ. Show me CP. I was hoping every break they would show somebody, and they actually didn't do enough of that, in my opinion. And that's why I think, too, I kind of said, the party vibe was there, but I felt could have been a little bit more. I'm not going to poo-poo the organization, because who's honestly prepared to, do a new ownership type production? It's not really realistic to think that they were super paying attention to that. But to answer your question, definitely Riggo. Riggo was number one, hands down, especially showing the old Skins logo on his blazer.
Yeah, that was I saw that through social media and the clips. That was pretty awesome. All right, so next question for you, Callow. So Sam Howell, he was the anointed quarterback one, starter for this coming season. So he had an okay week one performance. So in your opinion, how much time would you give him to determine that he can be hopefully the quarterback that can lead this team?
Well, let's be honest here. The backup's Jacoby Brissett. I have no interest in seeing Brissett, unless Hal absolutely, S's the bed and loses, 3 to 4 to 5 games. I think you give him the entire season. He's a 5th round pick. He looked solid on Sunday. He didn't look perfect. He also didn't help himself. I think he needs to get rid of the ball faster. The offensive line wasn't amazing, but I felt like both of them kind of hurt each other at different times. I would give him, as long as he's healthy, every game you can this season. Because if you're Ron Rivera, you're ride or die with him, right? If it doesn't work out with Sam Howell and you go to Brissett, you kind of know what you got in Brissett, and he's on a 1-year deal anyways. So you don't really have an option after this year. I think as long as he's healthy, you ride it out with Sam Howell. Let's just say realistically, if things look real bad by week 12 or something like that, maybe you throw Brissett in just to see what you got there, and maybe he could be a bridge guy. But honestly, until Sam Howell definitively loses you games, I think you give him every game rolling on here. And let's be honest here too. He's a 5th round pick. So we don't know what his ceiling is. Honestly, he was a 1st round grade before this, they drafted him last, 2 drafts ago at this point. So I honestly think you give him every chance you can. And you know what I love about Sam is that he forgets what his mistakes are right away. I think that's his number one thing that he's demonstrated over his 2 starts. And especially, the vibe in the stadium when that fumble happened for a touchdown was really bad. Like, people were pretty irked, and like, I even jokingly put on Instagram, like, same team, different owner, because those are the same mistakes that they make. But with that, he went right back down and got a field goal. He got 3 points back on the board. Like, you can't ask for much more than that from him. And so I guess what I would say too is, as long as he's showing some growth, a little bit of growth every single game, I think you give him the entire season, to be honest. Like, if it ends up being questionable that maybe you get an option in the offseason, maybe you take that shot. But honestly, I think you give him the entire season and you go from there. Because let's be honest here too, he's really cheap and they have no cap room right now either. So who knows if they can afford to go get another quarterback in the offseason.
Yeah, I think that's hopefully that's in the long-term plans. And if they, they crap the bed, then we go to the draft, right?
Right.
The Caleb Williams, sweepstake is on its way, and Arizona is the front runner. And that's a everybody wants to get that number one quarterback. And yeah, you are right. Like, their money's tied in the defensive line, and there's going to be more money to be paid for these upcoming free agents. So yeah, you are right, Callow. I don't think they have money for the quarterback position, and I think this is the best option for them. And hopefully, I don't think yes, there are the cheap 1 year fill-ins like we've always done, but I think with this new management, they're letting them do what they need to do, but they also want to see a long-term plan. And hopefully with Josh Harris and his group, they're letting them know, hey, like, whatever you do, let's stick with it, and not make any sudden changes unless something bad happens or something drastic. So yeah, I think that was a good point, Callow, that he has a cheaper option. He's under $1 million, like under $1 million per year, and he can exercise his fifth round. I mean, he's not a fifth round, sorry. Yeah, you can send a contract after what, third year, fourth year, since he's not first round.
So, yeah, exactly. So he's got I think you can sign him after the third year, because they only have a 4 year. Yeah, they only have a 4 year contract if you're under the, past the first round, essentially.
For sure. Yep. So yeah, I know I'm a big fan of Sam, and I know like he's been talking about going the road and hostile environment. There's going to be very that air, the climate in Denver is just, people are they're starting to like talk about, and hopefully they come prepared with it, and it's going to be another great game for that. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. So next question for you, Callow. So another big question that was lingering this season is Chase Young. So what do you expect from him this season? And in your opinion, do you think it'll be an extension that he'll have to prove it deal before he gets that big money contract?
So I think it's a loaded question, because I think it also has to do with Montez Sweat too.
Yep.
Do they sign both of them? I don't know. But I do know you're only going to be paying, as we just talked about, Sam Howell, under $1 million. You can probably finagle some cap room next season. You also have to worry about Cam Curl, who, by the way, started the season off with a bang on Sunday. He was fantastic. But so was Montez Sweat. And the thing with Montez Sweat that I think everyone has been waiting for is he's been very good, right? But on Sunday, he's flipped the game. I mean, he won the game with 2 forced fumbles. I think they had 5 straight plays with negative yardage, and he was in on pretty much all of it. Right now, if we had to do like a bar of like who deserves the money more, like, it's Sweat, because Chase hasn't played yet, right?
Yep.
And when it breaks down with Chase, I'll just say this too before I go with my expectations, what I think is going to happen. I hated the social media response on Sunday about him not playing. It seems like everyone kind of forgets. Rookie year Chase was amazing. I mean, he flipped games by himself. He was leading the defense. He was the captain of the defense. And he's fallen out of favor because, one, he wasn't playing in the scheme, in year 2. Then he got hurt. And then the comeback took so long. He was clearly kind of messed up and took his time coming back. And when he did, he was actually all right. Like, he played okay in that 49ers game. He looked all right, in every subsequent game after that. And, off of Sunday and him not playing, people just labeled him bust. And I'm not ready to do that with him yet. He's a physical freak. And when he's been healthy, he's been effective. And so if he's healthy, he will be effective, is basically what my philosophy is here. And he should play on Sunday against the Broncos. The Broncos' offensive line was terrible against the Raiders on Sunday. Max Crosby was in on every play I watched in the second half. You know what? If Montez Sweat is doing what he's doing, it should leave Chase Young wide open to do what he needs to do. And so if he's healthy, I expect a Pro Bowl-like season from Chase Young. There's no excuse not to. You know what? People knocked Ron for not picking up the fifth-year option, yet people were very quick to hate on Chase Young right away, right? Well, they do have something, in common there, and that's Ron has now motivated Chase to be very good this final year. And if he ends up being very good, bare minimum franchise tag. If not, they'll sign him to a long-term deal, because guess what? They kind of need the face of the franchise. And you can tell me you love Terry McLaurin and you can love Jonathan Allen, but the freak is Chase Young, who is the second overall pick, is from the area. And honestly, when he's healthy and playing well, he's super charismatic. I mean, we all remember the Heineke dive and then Chase Young pulling him aside and pointing to the name tag. Like, we were ride or die with Chase that year. And I don't think that has gone away at all. So for me, if he's healthy, I think we get a Pro Bowl-like season out of Chase Young this season.
Yeah, I hope so too, because I think you don't want to waste that investment, right? Like you drafted that second round pick capital, and people are like so quick to judge because for example with Jeff Okudah, right? He was the third round pick after Chase, and then he got traded, and then he got hurt, and I mean those are two different positions. Like I think with the defensive end, that's where the money is made. I mean look at Nick Bosa,
Yep.
like he's the highest gross paid like defensive player in the NFL. And
Yep.
no disrespect to Aaron Donald, like he's still I think he's still one of the best like defensive players in the NFL, but that's where the money is made. It's quarterback and the defensive line pretty much.
Yep.
All right. So next question for you. Let's see here. Okay, so we're gonna switch it a little bit. So I know you're a diehard fitted cap collector. So tell us how you got started, and then what's your top 5 caps that you fitted caps that you own?
I do have my top 5 sitting here, so we'll get to it in a second. But the way it started, honestly, it was a little bit weird. It happened in 2 phases. The first one was when the Nats got here. That was my first fitted, was the all navy blue Nats hat that they don't wear on the field anymore. I bought that and was kind of like, oh, this quality is nice. Like I'll be honest, like as a kid growing up, teenager, I was always rocking the flexed one or the 47 brand, like that's just how it was. White kid in Moco. It's the typical thing, right?
Yeah.
And but then I got the new era fitted and I was like, oh, these are way nicer. That was when they were made them out of wool too. So they stretched with you, they shrunk with you a little bit. And I was kind of like, man, I kind of rock with this. Like, let's go. And so I started to collect on fields, like every single variety from that point on. And I probably got up to like 40 or 50, and it was a nice little solid collection. And then, the customs, this full well collecting stuff were kind of crazy. Like the ones that were like the fake Louis Vuittons and the giant logos and just things, as I just said, as a white kid from Moco, I'm not rocking. Like I just can't rock with it, right?
Yeah.
And so when it came to customs, I didn't really do it. But then probably like, I don't know, let's call it 2018, 2019, you started having companies like Hat Club and Hat Dreams. And you always mention Hatland too, because they've been on the scene for a long time. We finally started getting some clean customs, like different colorways, side patches, and I just started buying, and then the designs kept getting better and better. And then through the pandemic, the designs were getting even more fire because people were taking their time with it. And so I probably am now up to like 250, 300. I haven't counted, but like, I mean, dude, during the pandemic, there was a hat showing up on my door every week, like bare minimum a week, if not twice a week. And so I just now rock it with everything. I have every colorway. And it's all mostly DC, but I started collecting other teams too. If I see a collection I like, I don't let it stop me. I do have my limits. Like I try not to buy Phillies or Mets. I've got a couple Braves, but I think if the Braves get a pass because their logo is just so classic.
Yes.
But I try not to go with like, the Yankees too. Like I just can't rock with some of those popular teams. But yeah, I'm now, yeah, like I said, like probably 250, 300 deep. And as far as my top five goes, I picked some out. This always changes, but you're gonna always notice, like a theme for me when it comes to my top five. And I'll get the first two out of the way because I told you my first one ever was the all navy blue Nats.
Okay.
And so the guys at Hat Club, they made two of the navies, and I'm kind of cheating here. And so that's the all navy with the World Series patch on it. One of my favorites, and all navy again. That one has the iced out stadium patch, but the best part about both of them, you got to go with the Brams.
Oh my
One's
God.
pink,
Yep.
one's icy. Like, to me, this is like the cross of old me and current me. Like, I love the all navy. It goes with so many kicks, goes with so many outfits. It looks classic. And honestly, the Nats don't wear it anymore, but I don't know why. It's one of their best looks. So I'm cheating there. That's number five. And then if I have to go number four here, got to go with the OG crossover, the old Capitals Wizards
That's
colorway.
the one. That's a banger.
I mean the copper. This is the one that I think really, like, I was like, okay, we're all cooking here. And so that was version one. That was my guys at Hat Club, and it's one of my favorite hats ever. Then we go to Hat Dreams, because Hat Dreams, they started getting the DMV fire. They made their own version, and so you kind of flipped it, but it's the copper W, the copper All-Star Game patch. Like, to me, that's another classic one. Goes with so many outfits, so many colors. So to me, that's number three. Number two, no surprise here, one of my all-time favorites, the burgundy and gold Nats hat.
That is sick.
I mean, the RFK logo there too.
Oh my God.
I have two of these. I have one that I have dead stock because I know, like, I'm just gonna rock the hell out of it, right? So you're sensing a theme here that I love, basically crossovers, and it's the Nats logo, whether it's in the Captain Wizards colorway or burgundy and gold. But this is like one of my rarest ones, and you can't make fun of me for how beat up it is, but it's because it is the Caps logo, Skins colors,
Oh my God.
NHL logo, yellow brim. And the reason why this one's special to me is because I bought this kind of in that phase one, when I was starting to collect hats. And as you know, like, I produced the Caps. I wasn't producing the Caps at the time, of course, because I was a younger guy. But those are my two favorite teams combined. And NHL hats now are not even made by New Era. They're 47 brand and Fanatics only. And you know how we all feel about Fanatics at this point. Like, so the fact that I have a New Era Capitals hat in the Redskins, or, you know what I mean, Washington football colorway, that's my number one. I actually try not even to wear it anymore because it's starting to, like, lose its structure. But those are my top five. I'm a sucker for combining the teams, rocking the different logos with the different team jerseys. So that's easily my top five are always crossover. I'm always a sucker for one of those.
Man, those are all fire, Callow. I mean, I've never seen that Capitals Redskin, fitted cap, and New Era is just a classic. Now, I think did you see what do you think of the side? I know the sideline hat is like it's like a pinwheel, circa 2000 era. I know it's a snapback. It's fire, right? But it's a freaking snapback. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wish it was a full fitted. That's how we like it.
I honestly, like, I always kind of scoff too at the sideline gear because it's all cookie cutter. Like, our team is not unique to the Cowboys. They all look the same, just different colorway.
Yeah.
The same thing. I can't rock with it. And I don't, like, I always ask this question to myself before I buy a hat. How many times will you wear this? Like, what can you wear it with? And those sideline hats, I'm always like, nah, I'm picking up the burgundy curly W or the burgundy DC logo, or I'm picking up just a normal W, with the Commanders W instead of that one. So yeah, I'm with you. I can't rock with it just because I know I'm gonna pick up other things instead. So
that's dope, man. I know, like you said, 250, but how do you give love to all at least once? Wear them. And there's a whole year. Do you give love to at least one of them? At least wear at least once a day for that one.
So I'm getting better at that. I noticed it was really bad probably at the beginning of this summer when I was going through my hats, and I kind of have a little bit of a sorting way to go about it, especially like summer and fall hats. Like, you got these bright colors. I usually rock them in the summertime, and then I have like these muted tones that are kind of a burgundy or a dark green or a brown. And I just kind of put those on their own shelf because I know I'm not going to rock them, right? I knew I had a bit of a problem when I was going through them, and I've probably found 6 or 7 with the sticker still on them. And so I was like, all right, when I wear one, I'm going to put it in its own pile. And that way I just know, like, oh, you've worn that one recently, try to wear something else. But of course, for like the ones I just showed, those ones I wear all the time. So I kind of have 2 different shelves right now. But yeah, I try to rock a different one every day, but sometimes, you just got to find the one that matches with your outfit. So
Yeah, I'd hate to be you, like, before you go to work, because I know you wear a fitted. You're like, which one today? You know what I mean? It's just like it
yeah.
just blends. So it's a
Yeah.
good problem to have for you. So good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
All right. So next question for you. So in addition to fitteds, Callow, you also collect sports apparel. So what's been your favorite pickup that you least expect to acquire?
I'll give you honorable mention. You got me the number 9 Arenas shooter shirt. I gotta throw that out there because I didn't think I'd ever get my hands on number 9 stuff, but that's a good one to have, especially signed. So honorable mention there. I kind of have a couple different items that I think are worth mentioning. One of them I bought when I was in college because there was this website that was getting old Redskins jerseys, and they happened to get the year when Sean Taylor passed away in 2007. And here I am in college, like I shouldn't be buying memorabilia. It's kind of pricey, but one popped up like not even, I mean, maybe right after the season ended, but they hadn't even finished the playoffs yet. And it was Ethan Albright, the long snapper. And so that was maybe like $200 or $300, whatever the price was. But the coolest part about it is it has the 75th anniversary patch and it has the 21 patch on it. And I used to think kind of like, man, I wish I would have gotten someone else. But as more and more time goes by, I'm just happy I got one because, those jerseys are hard to come by. Anything having to do with Sean without it being Sean stuff is special to me. And I've had just more like admiration as I've gotten older. Like I'm glad I kind of made that happen, scrounged together the money I had when I was working at Gap or and in school and stuff like that. So that's one of my like prized possession ones, and that one's just more sentimental. I was also into kind of just like swing it, a completely different way. I was lucky enough to during the pandemic kind of connect a little bit with a few people that were close to Max Scherzer. And so it was kind of the same thing as I just mentioned. Like if I get my hands on anything that, he wore or is signed by him, I would be really excited. And I ended up falling into one of his game used hats, and not just any game used hat, but his hat from when they wore the Expos jerseys.
Wow.
So, and he started that game. So when you kind of break it down, like I could have the last ever starting pitcher of an Expos, logo. And so, not to mention future Hall of Famer, they went on to win the World Series that same year. Like that one to me is very, very special. It's almost priceless. Like I know full well I should get that insured and make sure, like it's kind of locked away because it's so, one, not only valuable to me, but it's valuable in general. And so that's another one of the pieces that I love. And because I'm such a uniform geek, I was there for that game. Kind of seeing the home team wear a Montreal, uniform set was crazy. So that to me is like one of my favorite pieces. And then another one that I'll just mention, honorable mention, and we're going way, to the bottom of the barrel here. Chase Hughes a couple years ago wrote a piece about me because I like to collect bad pieces of memorabilia. And what I mean by that is bad moments. No one ever decides, oh, I want to get that jersey or I want to get that thing from that bad, terrible moment. And I just kind of decided one day, this is the cheapest stuff. And at the same time, we hadn't won a championship since, the Redskins won in 91. So I was like, screw it. I'm going to start collecting the bad moments. Like, let me see what I can get my hands on. And it all started with finding John Beck's game used jersey.
Oh my God.
From that game in Buffalo in like 2009, I want to say, maybe 2008, something like that, when he might have been a little bit later, like 2010, when he was the most sacked quarterback, and they played the game in Toronto, up in Canada, against the Bills. and his jersey, no joke, is ripped down the back because he was hit so many times. And I'm telling you, I got that jersey for like $125, and I love it so much because it's just so representative of the franchise, of where we were until literally this summer. Like, it just was such a good representation of this franchise. And so that's just one that I always love too, because I have a starting quarterback's jersey, but it is the worst one out of all the ones Dan trotted out there. He was probably the worst one. And so, yeah, in terms of, I went 3 different directions on you there, but I think all 3 of them, they all have room in my collection, and they're 3 of my favorite pieces.
I gotta check out your collection one day. You know, like just take a peek at your players. Like, hey, let me see that John Beck jersey you're telling me about.
Yeah, man.
Do you keep them like how do you store them? Do you put them like in a garment bag? Like how do you do it?
So the jerseys luckily actually kind of come kind of self-contained. The Redskins back in the day, they would put them in giant like gallon Ziploc bags.
Okay.
And so they just stay in there. I've largely have kept them kind of just away, just because it's hard to display everything.
Yep.
But I'll hang one up every now and then just to display for a little bit. But for the most part, I kind of keep them away. Those are just hard to display. But I have, when it comes to game use, hats and a couple bats I've got and some hockey sticks. I kind of just leave those out and display them nicely, and I go that route. And I just have like a big shelving unit in my back room that has just pretty much from left to right all signed stuff, game use hats, all that fun stuff. So I'm hoping, if I get a bigger apartment, or, whenever I buy a house, whenever that is, I'm definitely going to trick out a man cave with just all my game use stuff for sure.
That'll be dope. And I can't wait. And it should be Chase Shoes that should like write another article with the pictorial, pictures, and, man, he's a good dude. All right. Last question for you, Callow, and appreciate your time. So you are also a Capitals radio exec, producer. So you're also a diehard Capitals fan too. And in your opinion, once and for all, is Alex Ovechkin the greatest sports athlete of this generation?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even say generation. I'd say of all time. I mean, I think he is maybe the most important figure in this city's history as an individual. Like, I totally get it. 1 Stanley Cup, we're all happy he has that one. I think we all would have wished he would have had more. But when he breaks the record, it's going to be the single most important thing that happens to this franchise. The hockey world's going to be watching. ESPN's going to go live into their games. It's not going to happen this season. It's going to be next season. And I always have to quantify it with Ovechkin, because I feel like when you go up against some of the old heads, they all say, they name off all the Hogs, and they name off Art Monk, and they name off Rigo, and they name off a bunch of old Redskins, and that's perfectly fine. And this is player, not coach, because we all know Joe Gibbs is really probably the most important figure in this city when it comes to, just the most important figure. But when it comes to Ovechkin, I always like to argue with some of the old heads. The Redskins were popular before all those guys won a title. Everyone was a Redskins fan. They took over the city. RFK was packed for however many years it was until they moved. But then you have the Caps, who were pretty good, actually. Once they got out of that initial 5, 6, 7 year expansion year run, they were really good in the 80s. They made deep playoff runs, but no one cared still. And then they made it to the Stanley Cup in 1998, and people still didn't care. Red Wings fans took over, then Verizon Center. I mean, it was, or I guess MCI Center is what it would have been back then. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of, I think, the first lesson for everybody that, people do care about winning, but I think they care a lot about individuals and individual efforts and superstars, right? Mm-hmm. And so you rewind to like 2004 when they win the lottery, and it was the lockout year, and then Ovechkin comes along, right? And then just the first 3 years, he was awesome. And then they redo the uniforms to be red, and then they make the playoffs again. Alex Ovechkin single-handedly changed the landscape of who we pay attention to, going to games. You can probably say Ovechkin helped save Chinatown a little bit if you want to. Like, I've just said he made this into a hockey town when it wasn't. And the hockey team had already been around for what? 25, 30 years, something like that. He single-handedly dragged everybody to be a hockey fan. Like, excuse me. There are people that never went to hockey games until he was here and he was successful and winning MVPs. So for me, absolutely. He's the most important figure, as a player that's ever gone through this city. And the fact that he's going to break or, hopefully break, knock on wood, the all-time goals record. Like, are you kidding me? He's going to break, hopefully, Wayne Gretzky's goal record. Like, say it out loud. That's insane when you think about it. And he also won their first Stanley Cup. Like, diehard fans like me, all we wanted was one with him. All we wanted was one with this franchise, and they did it. They finally broke through because it was brutal to watch those playoff runs end prematurely. And so, yeah, I mean, I just think when it comes to important figures in this town, he's one of them. I think he's the best individual. I know people will always spit out there like Walter Johnson and Sammy Ball and some of the real old heads, but like those dudes were also pitching and throwing to guys that had grocery store jobs on Wednesdays. This guy has single-handedly kind of saved a franchise. And look at the Caps, man. I mean, they didn't make the playoffs last year, but they're in the playoffs every single year. They sell out. I mean, it's kind of crazy just to think about where they were when they drafted them and now looking at how it is now with, all the sellouts they have and, how many tickets they sell and just the popularity of the team in general.
Yeah, I mean, well said, Callow. He captivated the city, more than any athlete that I could imagine. We're both Gilbert Arenas fan. I think he started during that time when Gil was hot, and back in 2004, he was more popular than Sean Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be realistic. Like he was at the cusp of popularity, and his legacy was like so bright. He was doing a lot of foolish things, like driving very fast and doing all these like crazy stuff. He calmed down a lot. And I think it came with age, came with family, came with kids. Now he's as old and gray, and next thing you know, he's body checking you up. You know what I mean? You're on the floor. Like he's so yeah.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, like, that's the best part about him. Like, if you never watched hockey before, you got to bring someone to Cap One and go, just watch 8. Just watch what he does. And he's a missile. Like, he'd be running around there, and if he's not getting the puck, he's hitting you. Like, it was crazy to see what he kind of brought to the table because he made the game accessible. Let's be real there. Like, you could go to a game, you could just watch number 8, and you'd be perfectly fine with your night.
And he was at the Commanders game too, which was super dope, playing football with his kids. So. Man, yeah. I really hope that he breaks the record, not this year like he said, but it's next year in the 2025 season. It's going to be nuts. And then if he decides to hang it up, I think that'll be a nice bow, right? Like I think we've seen enough of them. To me, like I'm just like a Nats fan. Like I'm happy with one. I don't need to see another one. Me and you witnessed history, you know what I mean? So like,
yeah,
if there's another one, so be it. But I'm glad I was able to have him hoist that Stanley Cup because it's hard as hell. Like you were saying, like winning the President's Cup every year, and then you lose to like Montreal and 5 games at home every year, and then you would always lose to the Rangers, and you always lose to the Penguins every year.
Yep.
And then now that they broke the streak and they got their own cup, I'm happy with one. I'm not, like I said, I don't want so be it if he gets another one, but I think with the state of the team, they're older now, Backstrom is old now. He's not as fast as he used to. Same with who did they just re-sign? I forgot his name. Defensive guy, popular guy. Help me out, Callow.
Oh, they signed Tom Wilson.
Tom Wilson. There you go.
Wilson actually is like one of the younger-ish type of guys
Younger-ish.
is worth re-signing. But no, you're totally right in the sense of too. Like I've tried to explain it to people. The Caps, if it wasn't for Ovechkin, they probably would have torn this thing down and tried to hit the reset button again, right? But this record is so important that they have to balance that line of staying competitive and making sure he gets his goals because they don't stay competitive, he's not going to break the record, and you don't want him to break the record in another uniform. So yeah, they've had a tough task, but you know what? Like, here's the other thing too. Like, I talked about Ovechkin, how important he is. You just named Backstrom. Like, Backstrom has been there just as long. Like, he came in the year or 2 or 3 years after Ovi, and then you've got as I said, Tom Wilson, who's a fan favorite, and then you have TJ Oshie, who's been there for almost 10 years now too. Like, they've had these guys that have actually been like the longest tenured athletes in the city now. And so you can't be mad at them being loyal either. We've literally watched some of these dudes grow up in front of us, get married, and have kids. Like, there's something special about that, despite not being able to win all the time. But they still eked out one championship, and honestly, that one championship, as you said, completely worth it. And the Caps, when they won, they set the tone for every Stanley Cup celebration after that. You like, I don't think people realize nobody partied like them. And then after that, everyone tried to party like them. And that to me is like one of their legacies too. Like, they won a championship and they went so hard in the paint, everyone else tries to do what they do now. It's crazy.
Who swims in Georgetown fountain?
I know, right? Exactly.
Like, you see, like, after they host the cup at the Nats game, you still see all the Caps players in Nats gear, and then Ovi's like, let's go swim in that pond, let's go swim in that, not a care in the world. Yeah, it's all it's all love, man. So, all right, Callow, so I appreciate your time. So where can they follow you on your social medias?
So you can get me on Twitter and Instagram, same handle, at Mike_Callow. Yes, I'm an underscore person. I couldn't get my actual name on there, but Mike_Callow. And then make sure you check me out. I'm on every day with Bram Weinstein, voice of the Commanders, 3 to 6 Eastern time. And as I say to everybody, Bram's the voice of the team. He knows what's going on. He talks to the coaches. He talks to people around. So especially come Thursday, Fridays, those shows are really informative. You learn kind of what's going to happen in the game, or what they're going to try to do, or what he's hearing. He's not going to lay it all out for you, but you can read between the lines of what to expect on a lot of these games. And to me, those are our best shows. Those later in the week, and then of course Monday. Everybody loves the Monday reaction type shows, but with Bram being the voice of the team, I highly recommend it to any Commanders fan. And then during hockey season, we talk about every single Caps game day of. I will review it the next day too. We don't spend a lot of time on it. We're not going to inundate you, but a quick 5-10 minutes on the game. I'm telling you, we have everything locked down. And Bram, of course, as you know, is a huge Wizards fan. So once the Wizards get going too, we go all in with that as well. So check us out, ESPN630 DC. And if you're out of market, you can get us on the website, or we have our own app, the ESPN630 app. So check us out on all of those platforms.
Hey, man, thanks for all that plug. And for me living in California, I still love listening to you guys. So just a token appreciation. I don't like listening to any stuff here. That's just my personal preference. But keep rocking, Callow. I wish you nothing but the best. Continue collecting those fitteds, 250 and counting, apparels. You know what I mean? Keep doing your thing, man. So, well, hopefully we'll talk to you later in the year.
Of course, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for the invite.
All right, guys. Have a good night.